Fuck your beginner's reptiles list. I don't even get how the internet is always recommending the same 5 species for the best beginner reptiles out there. Bearded dragons, leopard geckos, ball pythons, corn snakes, or crested geckos. But the real problem with that isn't even the animals. It is the question in and of itself. What does beginner even mean? The geniuses amongst you would probably say somebody that never had any reptiles before. Obviously. But that doesn't tell us anything about the person itself. How big is their budget? How much room can they offer? How much time do they have on their hands for the animals? What about their technical knowledge? And also, what do they expect from the animal itself? And most importantly, how big is their willingness to do research and all the necessary preparation before they get the animal? Let's visualize that. Beginner A is 14 years old, is living with their parents in one room and has a budget of $200. Beginner B, however, is 35 years old, has its own home, has a budget of $2,000 a month. Both are technically beginners. But does that actually mean that we should recommend both the same animal? Probably not. And then we have the word easy, which is the most word in this context. Because what does easy actually mean? Are we talking about an animal being easy to feed? Easy to be handled? If it has easy needs on its environment? Is easy about the price being cheap? About the animal being small or extra hardy? Or easy to breed? A species can be considered easy in one of these points, but completely difficult in one of the others. Or are we talking about easy to keep alive? But again, that is not the same as easy to be kept well, because survival is not our goal. It is the lowest bar that we can actually aim for. Our goal should be to let the animal thrive. Boom! Let's take the bearded dragon as an example, which everybody and their dog will tell you is one of the best beginner reptiles there are. But are they really? While it is true that they are hard to kill, they still have needs that we have to fulfill. If you want to keep them properly, you need to provide them a big terrarium, really decent lighting, a really good UV spectrum, really hot basking zones, a temperature gradient, a good variety in feeder insects and plants. You will have to buy supplements and you will have a lot more energy costs than say if you would start with an anole or something. And then you have your fixed costs and God forbid someday you would have to go to the vet. So is it actually the best beginner reptile? Probably not. But it is hard to kill. But again, hard to kill shouldn't be an excuse for bad husbandry. And also, maybe we should think about if the animal is actually an animal that the keeper is interested in. Because the question that you have to ask yourself is not which beginner animal I could buy. It is which animal are you actually obsessed with, and also which one fits into your life. How much room do you have? How much costs can you actually afford every single month? How much time do you have at your hands? And a lot of you guys know that I'm not the biggest fan of handling every single animal that you have. Of course, there are species which tolerate it and might even benefit from it. But out of the 4,000 species of reptiles that we keep in the hobby, the amount of those species is as small as pretty small. Is the person interested in an animal that is good to observe, or are they on the hunt for something that they can cuddle with? In which case, I would recommend you to buy a teddy bear. Another question that never gets asked is, when is the person at home? Because if you are working all day long and then you come home to watch your animal, which is also asleep, it might not be the best animal for you. You should also not forget how long will the animal live. Because there are species out there that will actually live a pretty long life. And in captivity, they usually even live longer than outside in nature. And as it's summer right now, people are going on vacation. This is another problem. Who takes care of your animals once you are not there? Expectations also matter. You might want the species that you could actually watch during daytime. Because you don't really have a job and you're living at your mama's house without paying a single dollar for bills. And then if you go out and buy a nocturnal species, which will live hidden away most of the day, you will probably not be that happy of a keeper. If you're a person that hates insects and are disgusted by them, then a lot of species also would not suit you because they eat them and you will have to keep them and you should gut load them and then you're going to feed them to your animals. Probably not the best idea. And then we have the geniuses that have no room for a big terrarium and buy a tiny little baby of a giant species which will turn into fucking Godzilla overnight. Probably also not the best idea. And again, we have to talk about that. What about the guy that actually wants to keep the animal every now and then? If you are that person, you should probably aim for something that is a little bit smarter, maybe something like a monitor lizard, instead of a tiny little agama species which is scared out of his mind even when you just look at it. Our first priority will and always have to be the well-being of the animal. But we should also not forget about what the keeper actually expects. But at the same time, you should not forget that your animal owes you diddly dick. Because if you're a person that thinks that the animal owes you entertainment or affection just because you feed it and keep it alive, you are completely And yes, I'm actually talking about a conversation that I had last week on Instagram. People are completely fucked. Reptiles in many cases are a long-term commitment. While the cute little baby alligator at the pet shop looks super adorable, that thing will grow massive and probably even outlive you. You always have to reconsider how big the animal will actually get. Some reptiles can get 10 years, 15, 20 or 30 years old. Hell, even 80 years. And in the meantime, your life will probably also change. Hopefully. While you are maybe a student now, in 5 years you will probably have a job. Then you will maybe move out. You could even meet your partner, get married and have children. And then you have a new home. These are points that you should always consider. Because you are not choosing an animal just for today. You are probably choosing an animal that should also suit you in 10, 15 or 20 years. And if you have decided to get yourself a big tortoise, it will probably outlive you. So of course there's the question if it is even a good idea to choose an animal which will probably outlive you. Kevin, what the hell are you doing?
You said that I can start with anything that I'm obsessed with. Yeah, I'm most obsessed with bush monsters.
Kevin, get the fuck out of my office now. Of course, you don't start with anything venomous, a crocodilian, or something that is so big that it can turn you into a news article overnight. Not suitable for a beginner can be a good warning, whereas perfect beginner reptile is usually where it starts to get stupid. So instead of searching for the best beginner reptiles, you should probably think about rating species on different factors. Space, cost, lighting, heating, feeding, activity window, handling, lifespan, experience, and margin for error. There isn't just one single difficulty slider. So that being said, I think it's pretty difficult or maybe even impossible to make any recommendation to a person that you have no clue who he actually is. First, you get to know the keeper, then you consider their capabilities, and after that, you might be able to narrow down the list of animals which they actually can keep. Tell me what you can provide, what you expect, tell me how much space, time, and money you actually have, and about the species that you are genuinely obsessed with. And then we can talk about species. But until then, fuck your beginner's reptiles list.